Welcome to the 2023-2024 Lunch and Learn series with Anthony Nolan. So thank you so much for joining us. So I am Sarah Mason, one of the corporate partnership managers here at Anthony Nolan.
Yeah, and I'm Cordelia Simmons, so I'm the other corporate partnerships manager at Anthony Nolan as well.
So we're looking forward to not only introducing you to the work of Anthony Nolan, but also discussing our upcoming sessions and answering any questions that you may have. Throughout the session, it'd be really appreciated if people would just remain on mute just while we go through the content, but please feel free to utilise the chat function with any questions that you may have throughout. There'll be opportunity at the end for us to answer all those questions, or you can unmute at the end and ask any questions live. You also see there's both Cordelia and I's contact details noted if you have any questions following the meeting as well. I will note the session is being recorded, so it can be circulated with the contacts that have not been able to join the call today. So if you keep your cameras off, only if you don't want to be recorded. So there is the option to turn off live caption if you need them, by switching them on in the meeting options. So today's session is an introduction to Anthony Nolan. You'll learn who Anthony Nolan was, why the charity was founded, and also what a stem cell and a bone marrow transplant actually are, as well as further details on the Anthony Nolan's new 5-year strategy, what you can do to support, and finally some further details on the other lunch and learn sessions in this series. So to kick off, we'd like to show a short introduction video, which will give you some insight on who Anthony Nolan was and the aims of the charity. I will note it does contain some content that could be upsetting for some people, so if you want to, you can mute the sound on the video if you need, and we're here if you've got any questions at all.
Anthony Nolan was a person that needed a stem cell donation, and his mother went on a sort of campaign to find a match.
And she was inspired to set up the register that we know as Anthony Nolan today. As a mother going through something so horrific, I can really relate to Shirley Nolan. On the 28th of May 2020, we got told the devastating news that Evie had this really rare blood disease called plastic anemia.
When I was 14 years old, I was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. I think from there, nothing really felt real anymore.
I've always known Evie as a strong little girl. Oh God. She's just got this beautiful soul. First time we heard of Anthony Nolan was when her consultant said that they would need to search the stem cell register to see if there was a donor match for Evie.
I was told that without the transplant, I wasn't going to make it much further than the Christmas of that year.
I think it's really important that anyone who requires a transplant can get one, and that's not the case today. But we're working incredibly hard to try and improve the outcomes so that patients have that option.
While I was sat there waiting for Anthony Nolan to find me a match, it was a terrifying and nerve-wracking time, and all you think about is the what ifs, and what if I don't find a match? What if we don't find somebody who's going to be able to save my life?
In the last few years, we've seen new treatments, new ways of matching patients and donors at a rate that we've never seen before. The day of transplant really is the first day of the next journey for a patient.
I knew that they could be anywhere in the world, the person I donated to. In some way, I'm connected to someone that I don't know and may never meet, but I know that I've gave them another chance to live, really.
I've never met my donor, I don't know what they look like, but I love them with all my heart, and I know that to me, they are part of my family.
We're actually working on research that helps to improve and guarantee patients' quality of life after transplant. That all started with one little boy.
I think Shirley's a superhero, really. She's gone from trying to save her son to then saving people all across the world.
Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it, but look at the legacy that has been left behind in his name.
Anthony Nolan have given Evie her life back. They found Evie her donor match.
Anthony Nolan is the most incredible charity there is. They are so proactive in what they do. They're so supportive in the people, the donors, the patients, the families.
For me, when I think of stem cells, I think of hope. Knowing that one day we may be able to help many patients through what is probably the most toughest time of their lives, it really spurs you on and inspires you to keep going.
So, Anthony Nolan is the charity that saves lives of people with blood cancer and blood disorders by making life-saving connections between patients and heroic strangers willing to donate their stem cells. As you saw in the video, we were founded in 1974 by a devoted mother, Shirley Nolan, who was prepared to do anything to find a stem cell donor for her son, Anthony. Determined, she set up the world's first donor registry and named it after her son. And although, sadly, a stem cell match was never found for Anthony, in the last 49 years, her mission has never faltered. Since 1974, Anthony Nolan has grown from strength to strength, now being much more than just a stem cell register. In 1996, we opened our Anthony Nolan Research Institute, which is dedicated to improving patient outcomes. To help meet the unmet need for transplants, especially within the minority ethnic community, we developed our cord blood program in 2008, which helps expectant mothers donate the cells from the umbilical cord, which can be used for a transplant where a match cannot be found on the standard register. To further support patients' recovery, we launched our Patient Services Program in 2013, which helps patients and their families deal with the turmoil of a blood cancer diagnosis. And in 2018, we developed our Cell and Gene Therapy Service, which utilizes in-house expert research to innovate patient treatments for the next generation. Through all of this, we have remained committed to saving lives. Every day, we give 3 people a second chance of life. We're building on our 50 years of experience and expertise to keep pushing the boundaries of what we can achieve for our patients. We want to ensure all patients who need it can access the best treatment, and importantly, that more patients can live the life they want to lead after their treatment, to thrive as well as survive. Blood cancer is a lot more common than you'd like to think. Around 40,000 people in the UK are diagnosed with blood cancer every year. And unfortunately, more than 15,000 of those go on to lose their lives to blood cancer, making it the 3rd biggest cancer killer. For those with blood cancer, a stem cell transplant is often their only chance of survival, and over 2,000 people need one from an unrelated donor each year. However, this treatment isn't easy. There are still people that tragically pass away waiting to find their matching stem cell donor. And for those transplants that do go ahead, sadly, only half of those patients survive beyond 5 years. And many patients fail to receive that unique care and support they desperately need to recover. This isn't just a UK problem, it's worldwide. We sent stem cells to 26 countries in 2021 and 2022. Last year, we were able to give over 1,300 patients a second chance of life through a stem cell transplant. But unfortunately, the reality right now is that we can't help everyone who needs us, but we won't rest until the day we can. We know that there remains a significant disparity when it comes to the types of transplants which offer the best chance of successful outcomes, with patients from a minority ethnic background less likely to access a well-matched unrelated donor transplant. In fact, our research shows that people from those minority ethnic backgrounds have just a 37% chance of finding their best possible match from a stranger, compared to 72% for those from a white European background. This is just unacceptable, and it shows our urgent need to do more to give everyone the best possible chance of surviving blood cancer.
So we use the phrases stem cell transplant or bone marrow transplant, but what do these actually mean and what is the patient's journey? So if you have a condition that affects your bone marrow or blood, these treatments could be the best treatment option for you as a patient. During a stem cell transplant, the medical team will replace a patient's blood stem cells with new healthy stem cells from a suitable donor. After a period of time, they will attach to the individual's bone marrow and they start to create new blood cells. This is why we need new stem cells selected from a donor that is closely matched to the patient to give them the best possible chance of overcoming the condition. But what is the difference between a stem cell and a bone marrow transplant? Both types of transplants give the same result. The patient receives stem cells that will develop into a new immune system, but the difference is how the cells are collected from the donor. So for over 90% of donations, stem cells are connected through the donor's bloodstream. Their blood is passed through a small tube into a machine that collects the stem cells and then returns the rest of the blood to the body. It's a very similar experience to giving blood, but just takes a little bit longer. For 10% of donations, the stem cells are collected from the donor's bone marrow. It involves a small surgical procedure to collect bone marrow from the donor's pelvis under general anaesthetic. The choice of collection method depends on the patient's condition involved and the patient's general health and age. And it'll be the doctor who will assess the method that is most appropriate for the patient, and any donor would be aware in advance of the procedure. So what happens to the donated stem cells? You'll see from the image there's a journey of the cells, and it's separated into for transplant and for research. So not only do we support life-saving transplants for patients, we also collect material for our cell and gene therapy research. You'll hear some further details on this entire process throughout the Lunch and Learn series, for example, in the discussions with our labs team and also our cord blood programme.
Now that you know a bit more about Anthony Nolan and a little bit more about what a stem cell transplant actually is, we thought we'd talk you through briefly a little bit about our new 5-year strategy, which was launched in April. So I've dropped it into the chat. It's just one of the links there. So if you want to have a look at it after this and ask any questions, just let us know. So basically, we've launched this with 3 key aims for the next 5 years. So these are survival, equity, and progress. Underpinning every single one of those aims is our 3 key pillars of discovery, data, and donors.
So firstly, survival. So to give transplant patients the best chance and quality of life. Our register and research has been improving the outcomes and experiences for patients for 50 years, but there's still so much more that we can do. Stem cell transplantation is complex and it's risky, and currently I'd say only half of patients survive beyond 5 years. And for those that do survive, the physical and psychological effects of the treatment can impact their quality of life. Through discovery, we're championing research to better understand the factors that impact survival rates and quality of life so that we can improve both. Our research will also inform and transform treatment and care and personalise it for each patient. We'll be improving healthcare systems and decision-making for care across the entire patient journey. Through our data, we'll be creating better insights into patient needs and exploring the role of AI and machine learning in a clinical setting. And through our donors, we'll be optimizing our donor register and our cord blood bank. So you'll hear more about these, say, with the following sessions in the Lunch and Learn series.
And then equity. So as I mentioned to you guys before, there's a massive disparity between equity of access to treatment, especially in terms of ethnic background. So we know that a lot of patients find it harder to access the treatment and care that they need, depending on where they live, their socioeconomic and ethnic background, education, understanding of their health, and then just generally the health system. We know that it shouldn't be like this. So our aim for the next 5 years is to give every patient the best possible outcome by getting to understand where, how, and why these disparities exist and what we can do to remove them. So for Pillar 1, discovery, we're going to be supporting the development of new treatments to tackle the impact of suboptimal matches. With Pillar 2, for data, we're going to be understanding how population change will impact future patient needs. And we're also going to be looking at improving our donor recruitment and retention to improve the scale and quality of our donors. And finally, Pillar 3, our donors. We need to develop a more diverse register. We're going to be doing targeted recruitment while also working with registries all around the world to improve global availability and access to donors.
So lastly, progress will be to explore and embrace new cell therapies and make them available for patients more quickly. So Antonio's purpose is to further improve access to outcomes of transplantation. Alongside this, there's so many emerging new treatments that we can use to help achieve our aims. By improving the process of getting these new treatments approved and accessible to patients, we can make sure that they're used at the scale needed for the maximum impact required. So we have the aim for more donors to contribute their cells for research into new treatments for patients. And then we can use our expertise to drive forward research within cell therapy treatments. So say through discovery, I'll be working with patients and healthcare professionals to develop personalised care pathways and providing information and guidance so patients can make informed decisions. Also continue to invest in clinical trials and encouraging diversity within participation. Through our data, we're working across the NHS and clinical community to improve the analysis of cell treatments and also share insight into new treatments that are simpler and more effective. Again, through our donors, we continue to provide high quality cells from appropriate donors for use in research and to continue our knowledge and new treatments.
So you might be thinking, what can you do to support Anthony Nolan going forward? So I guess our first one is just think about signing up to the register. Obviously, like I mentioned before, we're looking at sort of developing our quality of our donors rather than quantity. So from our research, we found that the three key groups that we need to focus on for the next 5 years is people aged 16 to 30, preferably young men. Our research shows that if a donor is a male, it leads to less complications post-transplant. And then finally, people from minority ethnic backgrounds for that diversification of the register piece. If you don't fit into these groups, there's no need to worry. We can think about other routes that we can work together to help diversify our register. There's loads of different options. We can look at, even just you sharing resources with family members and friends, or, if you have any connections to local youth clubs or schools or universities, we can also look at doing recruitment events through that as well. In terms of fundraising, there's always options internally within your corporate. All the partners that we have at Anthony Nolan will have their own fundraising calendars. So be sure to kind of speak to your charity lead there and see what's coming up. There's also the option to fundraise through physical activities, if that's your kind of thing. So the marathons, half marathons, challenge events, things like that. A little bit on the, maybe not the physical running side, you can promote the Anthony Nolan message internally. So if there's any resources that you want from us to share that you can share with colleagues and teams and things like that, just let us know. We have loads of things available for that as well. And then finally, I've dropped a link into the chat, but there's loads of volunteering opportunities at Anthony Nolan. So have a look at the ones available at the moment in that link there. But there's also the opportunity to help out at our recruitment events. So sometimes we have recruitment events internally at our corporate partners. So if that happens, make sure to come down and say hi and get people to come and help sign up as well. But then we also host bigger events with other partners like the Armed Forces or Fire and Rescue Services, etc. So if you ever have the capacity to help out at those, that's always really appreciated as well.
So lastly, what is to come through the Lunch and Learn series? The next session will be hosted by our Anthony Nolan Labs team, and it will take you on the journey of a swab sample, all the way from us receiving the sample into the lab and through how they test it and on reporting the results of the testing as well. So that will be taking place on the 28th of September.
And then after that, on the 30th of November, I will be joined by Anne O'Leary, who is the Director of Donor and Transplantation Services here at Anthony Nolan. So she's going to be talking you through that team's life-saving work, all the way through the process of searching for a matching donor, and then also the support they offer throughout the donor journey and the delivery of that product to the patient.
And last but not least, there'll be a session hosted by Diane Davies, who's our clinical midwife advisor here at Anthony Nolan, and she'll be giving an introduction to the cord blood programme, which I know we've referenced quite a lot today. So it is vital to help us meet that sort of unmet need for transplants and how cord blood has become a life-changing option for patients with rare tissue types. So that'll be actually taking place on the 29th of February next year. So thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions at all?